Hello and welcome to episode 18 of the Regista Football Podcast. My name is Jack. Once again, I'm joined here by my good friend Ben. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Jack. Excited to start talking about football again.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because these international breaks feel like they take a bunch of time, where in actuality it's only a week, but we're used to discussing and watching a bunch of football consistently. Did you watch any of the international football throughout the break?
I didn't watch a lot of international football. I kept up on how, players were doing and things like that, but there was the qualifications and like teams not qualifying. Like I watched part of the Italy match just because I
Yeah,
was like, what is happening?
dude. I I think everyone watched that game. Like as soon as we realized that they weren't going through, I think a
Yeah.
bunch of people started watching that Italian game. What
hmm
a crazy position for them to be in. Like if you think about their dominance throughout like international football, throughout really the history of football, how bad they are at the moment is a crazy situation.
I was looking at their team and I realized that I only knew who some of those players were because because I watched Premier League, like
Yeah,
Calafiori, Donnarumma, and then Tonali was I think all the people I
yeah.
really recognized, and then there was someone else who plays for Inter Milan. I forget their name, but I was like, I don't know any of these players. Whereas 10 years ago, you could name the entire Italian side.
Because they were in like basically Ballon d'Or shouts. Like I remember when they
Exactly.
won the World Cup with
Yeah.
Cannavaro, like
Yeah.
it's completely unrecognizable from that. But we're not an Italian football centric podcast. Ben. We are a Premier League centric podcast, and I want you to tell the people what we're going to cover today.
Obviously, we're going to be talking about one of the biggest newses of this week, Roberto De Zerbi to Spurs.
Big one.
Wild. Also, we heard that Mo Salah is doing his last season at LFC, so we're going to be giving him a farewell as he deserves, giving his flowers. We'll do some FA Cup previews, Southampton, Arsenal, Man City, Liverpool, and then we'll do some predictions for Chelsea, Port Vale, West Ham, Leeds. And then finally, getting into the end of the season, we're going to be talking about our overviews for the title race, UCL race, as well as relegation sides.
Yep, as we promised last time, we're going to go over those overviews. I'm actually looking forward to that because there's some good amount of reflection to happen, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Running into the title race, very interesting to see the next 5 games, and same with UCL and relegation would do that. Let's talk about De Zerbi.
Yeah.
So, firstly, but before we actually go into like the full agenda, I'll tell you just how I feel about it, like on a just a general basis. I was really surprised to see he decided to come in this stage of the season, mainly because of what's at stake. Do you know what I mean?
hmm Yeah, I was confused about why he would accept it at this point in the season. Like,
Feels
I honestly
crazy
was
to me.
thinking that they would have done like a caretaker, signed him and said, "Hey, come on in at the beginning of the next season." But it seems like he really wanted a role, and it looks like Spurs want to pull the trigger on something
Yeah.
sooner rather than later.
And like I'll say this: Igor Tudor. I know he lost his dad, which is such a fucking shit situation to be in. Not only as
Yeah.
Tudor, but also as Tottenham. Like the guy you're hoping rescues your safety is going through a really tough time at the moment, and it's probably best for both parties if he leaves. And it happened, and De Zerbi takes over. He signs a 5 year deal, and I think that's a big reason why he ends up coming through. I know, like in terms of overall money, he's earning more than Emery, which makes him the third highest earning manager in the Premier League. Believe it or not.
That is wild.
So, like, I think that's a big reason he's decided to take over.
I think like this appointment is risky, but I think it's really important for us to kind of dive into what the variables are to determine if this appointment is risky. So, what we want to look at first and foremost is kind of the record in the first 5 games in both of De Zerbi's previous clubs. So that is Brighton, and then also more recently Marseille. That helps us understand like how does he come into the team. I'm really going to be able to look at that and maybe predict how well Spurs will do for the rest of the season. Also, it's important to look at overall squad profiles and whether they match De Zerbi's philosophy. I'm going to reveal something, and I don't think a lot of people are going to find this a surprise. This squad profile is not really what De Zerbi's philosophy matches in the past, but we want to dig deep a little into it.
Yes.
I think like on paper, he doesn't typically play with a 10, and there he's just kind of more occupied with players occupying spaces in the final phase of the game and really making those players take up the traditional positions. And so like I'm really interested to see like how he brings that philosophy into this squad.
They
What
have
does it
like,
be really yeah.
you know what I think is really important to note there? He has, so like, let's ignore the short term for a second, but if we look at the long term, he essentially has three number 10s that have been bought for, outside of Kulusevski. Like, if we look at Madison, obviously like a prime player, probably a crucial player in the squad if he's healthy. Him and Xavi Simons, they're both specialist number 10s. He doesn't traditionally play with the 10, so how are they going to fit into the squad? It's something that I think would need will need to be figured out in the long run. And as a additional caveat, all of the players we're gonna talk about aren't players that have been injured for the long term. So like no Kulusevski conversations, no Madison conversations. I don't think that's important for the immediate short term because really that's what Tottenham fans are facing at the moment. We know how they'd probably fit in the long term, but in the short term, that's ultimately what we're going to discuss here.
Yeah. And also, I mean, what he'll really need in the short term, if he's going to play his kind of football, is connectors in the half spaces, people who can be a combination of wingers and also pivot into the attack. And then obviously, we know that in some of his past, he has used Alexis McAllister in the 10. And so I think that's the kind of profile he's going to be looking for. Maybe someone he could utilize. Could that be Kudus when he comes back from injury? Potentially. But I think finally at the end of that, we're also just going to cover the next 5 Spurs games anyways at the end of the match to see if if De Zerbi is the guy to take them out of this relegation battle. But to kick us off, Jack, can you walk us through his record at his last 2 clubs?
Sure. So for Brighton, his first 5 games. So it's important to remember that he took over from Graham Potter halfway through the season. Graham Potter got sacked. So he was
Wild, I
hired in
totally forgot about
October.
that.
Yes, it's completely different when you're hired in October versus when you're hired before preseason. Much more time to implement philosophy. And you could see in this situation, so for Brighton, he played, we'll go over the 5 games. So a 3-3 draw to Liverpool. I actually remember that game. It was at Anfield. Very annoying from my perspective. That's actually under Jurgen too, which is kind of funny. Against Tottenham, they lost 1-0 at home. Brighton against Brentford. In Brentford, they lost 2-0. And then Brighton against Forest at home, they drew 0-0. Not the best start, and we're getting to the points totals in a minute. For Marseille, very different. So he takes over kind of at the start of the season. He has time to implement his philosophy. They win. They get a 5-1 win at Brest, so away. They get a 2-2 draw at Rennes, which is probably not the best result, but still a 2-2 draw. At Toulouse, they win 3-1, which is a decent result for that specific league. Against Nice at home, they win 2-0. And against Lyon away, which is a big game, they win 3-2 away. So at Brighton, he takes 2 points from a possible 15. And at Marseille, like I said, he takes over at the start of preseason and he gets 13 points from a possible 15. So what that says to me, Ben, is if he has time to work with players and really go over exactly what he wants to do, I think it's really important that he has time to develop the ideas of these players and how he wants to approach in terms of like his overall tactical setup. But you can see there, based on Brighton in the Premier League, we have some sample size here, that it didn't go particularly well for him at the start. What do you make of that? And do you have any specific, I guess, opinions based on those 2 bits of data?
I feel like a part of it is probably kind of recovery from coming in after Graham Potter and his team, right? Like in that season that he came in, Graham Potter was kind of 15th. He had to do some rebuilding and had to kind of like maintain a little bit more of, I guess, understanding who's going to play what role. And I think that's
Yeah.
always going to happen, especially when you're a very tactically focused manager. You're the kind of manager that comes in and you want to play your kind of football. And if you want to play your kind of football, sometimes you don't necessarily give into what is required. So I think that's what really it says for both sides. And so I think that's what's really going to be interesting here, and see if he is able to switch his tactics to meet the kind of football that is required rather than playing the football that he wants to play.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because those are, I think, really fair distinctions to make. The football that he wants to play versus the football that's required given the situation they're in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll probably see, I don't know, dude. Like when I think of De Zerbi, I don't think of tactical compromises. I think of
No.
he plays the type of football that he wants to play. It's probably what he's going to try and do really early on. But you know what? He signs a 5-year contract. Surely there's some idea that even if we do get taken down, we've had conversations about what happens here.
Yeah.
Surely.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I know that there's no relegation clause in his contract,
Yeah.
which is insane for a
Madness.
manager for a top 6 club.
Yeah.
But I wonder if a part of that is just that Spurs leadership has probably thought, you know what, even if we go down, we'll be back up and we'll be good once we come back up. I don't know. Maybe it's hubris, but yeah, interested to see what that's going to look like.
Me too. And as part of this, like Ben discussed just now, we're going to cover squad profiles, like what makes a De Zerbi player. Do Tottenham Hotspur currently have it? From my perspective, I would say he has a very unique style of football overall. Kind of based on the ability to play out of a pressing structure, kind of beat the pressing structure, move the ball quickly, really with the use of the pivot players to play the ball in behind and utilize the space that teams leave you in behind. Um, the build up phase for his teams are incredibly important, and we're going to get into that really when we do cover those player profiles. So Ben, let's start with the first player profile. Really, like when you first name a player on the team sheet, it's typically the goalkeeper. What does De Zerbi need from the goalkeepers, and do Spurs currently have that as it stands?
Yeah. De Zerbi for his goalkeeper is looking for someone who's composed when under pressure, someone who can handle that press. They're constantly scanning, looking for the free man, able to make a short and quality pass through the central pressure.
Yeah,
Usually it's more clipped or direct distribution when the press does overcommit. So really a ball playing
yeah,
goalkeepers what they're looking for. Someone who can even step in and help with the build up structure, ability to kind of sweep as well when they're playing a high line. When you look at the 22-23 season, his keeper was Sanchez.
yeah.
So
He's a
like
sweeper.
Sanchez, yeah, who's very much a sweeper. And then it was Verberg in the
Yeah,
following season. But that's because Sanchez performed really well and he moved on to Chelsea. Right now, who's at Spurs? It's Vicario, who operates well under pressure, but he doesn't really stand out in his ball playing ability. Also, I don't think he is great at commanding his box and becoming a sweeper overall.
no, I think Vicario is, man. When I think of like quote unquote top 6 goalkeepers, I think he's the worst at commanding his box. Like if you look at those difficult corner set piece situations, he's often the guy that gets pinned and dominated like in a 6-yard box.
Yeah.
But I would say though, like in some of the ball playing ability he has, he's not great, but he's not bad. He's adequate, so to speak.
Yeah, he's not fantastic, but I think he could potentially do the job. I do remember Vicario kind of getting a little flustered when he gets pressured. But that might
Yeah,
just because he doesn't feel like he has an outlet, and that's because,
possibly.
the center backs aren't close enough to help him. And then Kinski is a little better with the ball at his feet, but he still has made a lot of high profile errors, and that's going to be kind of harder to see him coming as a starter. So really, I feel like he doesn't quite have the goalkeeper profile required to play the kind of football he wants to play.
No, and ultimately, I think that too. I think like when I look at how De Zerbi's goalkeepers need to play, I mean, you laid out the criteria there. I don't think either of those goalkeepers really cover the scope of what his keepers need to do. What I would say though is I think Vicario probably has enough to see out maybe a year and a half. I don't think it's like a huge squad need for them by any
Yeah,
means.
yeah.
Like there are definite bigger holes in the squad than goalkeeper, at least for me.
Yeah, speaking of bigger holes in the squad, how are we looking in defense?
You're going to hear me absolutely glaze Romero in a minute, so you need to prepare for that. So what are the qualities for Spurs centre? Well, not even Spurs centre backs. Ignore Spurs centre backs. They've been stinky this year. But Roberto De Zerbi centre backs. Ultimately, they need willingness to hold on the ball, to bait the press. We've spoken about that countless times. If you go back to the Marseille episode, we talk about how his centre backs love to bait the press. The ability to play line breaking passes, especially into midfield. We'll get into how important those pivot players are in a little bit. Clip distribution over pressure when the short option is shut down. So he needs to be able to play intermediate passes, not just short passes. Aggression to step into midfield or follow a kind of dropping striker. Ultimately, for me, like the ability to kind of come out and take the ball into midfield. They definitely do have one centre back who can do that really well, and we'll get into that a bit more in a minute. But I think for De Zerbi's style of play, that's really important when options are shut off because ultimately you are baiting the press there. Recovery pace and turning speed to defend the channels afterwards, mainly because of how the fullback's orientated in possession. Concentration and rest defense, typically because the team can be left exposed, especially when the press is beaten higher up the pitch. I think they have that too, and we'll get into that. The balance between the centre backs is a bit different. I'd say one needs to be the cover defender, the other needs to play the role as a progressive defender. And I will tell you, Ben, I think they have close to perfect centre back profiles. I really do.
Okay.
So let me talk about Romero. So I might be the only person that thinks Romero is an elite centre back, and I'll explain why. So if you look at specifically this combination, not even this, I think Romero is one of the best ball players at centre back in the world. And I've always thought that. Mainly because of his ability to progress the ball intermediate to long, but he pings balls along the floor. I would say he can lack some concentration sometimes out of possession, but if he has a decent structure behind, like in front of him, I think he'd make less of those and his on ball value is really high. And I'll get into some stats to prove it. So his progression actions per 90 are 87th percentile, which is very good for centre backs. He's top 13% of his class. His progressive passes per 90 are 92nd percentile. His progressive pass percentage per 90 is 90th percentile. And his deep progressions per 90, which is a really important stat. So the ability to pass from the first phase to the second phase, he is 98th percentile. So he has a really bright all-round passing profile from my perspective. And it then comes into the type of player you play next to him. So Van de Ven, we know who Van de Ven is. Very different profile to Romero. I'd say he doesn't have the passing ability, but he has genuinely elite off-ball qualities. He also is a little bit underrated with the ball at his feet, in my opinion. Like, if we can think about a lot of situations, even we've seen it parts of this season and times last season, the ability he has to be able to drive past opponents when under pressure is actually quite impressive because of how much of a good athlete he is. We know that. Progressive carries per 90, so passes over 10 yards, I think they put it, is 75th percentile. Carries into the final third. Remember, he's a centre back. So carries into the final third is a weird stat. 75th percentile, so he's quite good at that too. Productive dribbles per 90. That stat is essentially a measurement of successful take-ons where like the next action is a progressive pass, a progressive dribble, or like a shot or assist. So things that happen productively after that action. He is really high. He is 98th percentile at that. Actually, 88th percentile. My bad. I'm reading the stats wrong. So 88th percentile of that. So you can see he's really productive when he can get out of those difficult situations. I think that centre-back pairing, Ben, works really well for how De Zerbi sets up. If you think about what he did with his Brighton teams, a guy that is used more of a sweeper, but is somewhat progressive and then like a pure progressor. I think this is a good mixture of profiles.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I'm not fully convinced, or will I say that I believe that these two are great defenders, but
It's fair.
but I mean, it could be what is required. And you know me, like I'm always looking at stats as well. How reliant is De Zerbi on a structure for his center backs to stop dribblers past, or is he more focused on that defending action happening higher up?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think ultimately his focus. I mean, you really never want your centre backs to be dealing with a bunch of one-on-one situations, but I think in terms of De Zerbi, I'd say he's shown different pressing structures throughout the clubs he's been at. So Marseille, when we kind of looked at them, they were kind of like that 11, 12 PPDA type of area. So like
Hmm.
not not like an aggressive press. They press, but typically when opponents play into the kind of like central block or whatever. For Brighton, I remember they pressed pretty aggressively in the Premier League, but I think football's changed a little bit in that time, so it's kind of difficult to kind of evaluate both of his teams for kind of that specific area because the way football is played has changed slightly based on how teams press from the front. But I think it's a really good point. I would say though, Romero isn't the best one-on-one defender, but Van de Ven is ridiculous at one-on-one defending. Like he's very, very good at it. Mainly because of his insane athletic ability. But let's get into the fullbacks. Talk to me about kind of what he needs from fullbacks and whether the current squad is a fit.
Yeah, I mean, he utilizes his fullbacks in so many different ways. They're the engine. They are the engine of his machine, right? They need to be able to have a lot of repeat sprint capacity, which means they're running up and down the pitch,
Yeah,
both in attack and coming back to defend. They need to be comfortable in receiving the ball wide when they're under pressure. They are always working through overlaps, underlaps, timing them perfectly, and that's a lot because of, and we've talked about this before about De Zerbi and his ability to utilize his transitions, right? And so they
yeah.
need to be able to judge when to stay wide and then when to come back into half spaces. Excuse me.
Very good.
And that question I was leading to of like how important are the center backs in defending? His fullbacks are really the people doing that one-on-one defending in those large spaces because they're the engine of the team. They have aggression, jump forward on the press, making sure that they dispossess the ball earlier on and relieving some of that defensive pressure for the back of the team, and also having that recovery speed to support with the defense so that they're not left one on one, so they can be two on
Yeah.
one in case someone is dribbling by them.
Talk to me about the players. So
Yeah.
I'll actually ask you this initially. What are the like standout fullbacks that Spurs have, at least to you? You can say none.
No, I mean, Pedro Porro, I think, is one of the standout fullbacks. If anything, his consistency and overall ability to defend that space. I mean, I feel both the Dogi and Spence have had just intermittent availability this season.
Yeah,
So
Udogie's suffered some injuries, so has
yeah,
Spence.
yeah, exactly. And in a lot of my mind, I almost feel like Spence is more of like an attacking, like wing back rather than like a fullback.
Yeah,
That's at least where he wants to play. But those are the players that I kind of see. Poro has a lot of qualities off the ball, and he has the ability to like do that one on one defending that is really required of them. I almost feel like sometimes he does play in that third center back role and will also run up the pitch and put more pressure on the center backs when required. So I think he's done really well overall as like an inverted right back. He's probably the one fullback defender that I really see could play into this overall tactic.
okay. So the funny thing for me when it comes to Pedro Porro is I don't think he's typically the best one-on-one defender, but what he has as like a pure advantage is his ability to play progressively. He's very much like a Trent profile for me.
Okay.
Not particularly good at dealing with one-on-one defending, but if he has the ball in space, he can hurt people with it. He's much more volume than Trent is, though. Like I think his success rate must be considerably lower than Trent's, but he can still play those types of passes. I'll talk through Udogi. So I think he is my favorite profile they have. He has been since he come into the squad under Ange. I think what makes Udogi special is his athletic ability, his ability to control the ball and dribble with the ball under pressure. Really, really good. He's also 6'2", which is a pretty unique profile if you match that with how fast Udogi actually is. He has good recovery pace. Probably not the best kind of out of possession defender, but overall, I think he's a profile. I would take Udogi at Liverpool in a heartbeat. I think he's brilliant, but hasn't been in a consistent structure to be able to let the really unique qualities he has to shine. I don't. What do you think of Jed Spence? I like Jed Spence. My issue with Jed Spence is I think Jed Spence is a really elite recovery fullback.
Mm-hmm.
Like one on one, really, really good. Like he can deal with a bunch of people running at him at once. You can see when he even plays on the left side, which isn't his strong side. He's really good at dealing with that like strong side attacker, like cutting on the inside. I don't know. For me, like if you play as a fullback in the modern systems, you need to be able to contribute offensively, and I just don't think he does enough.
Yeah, I don't really see. I feel like Jed Spence almost like rotates into that center back role also
Yeah,
more effectively than he does on like a winger or a left back or fullback role. Yeah, I almost feel like he's like an understudy for one of the other center backs rather than playing him at fullbacks. I would probably prefer doing generally.
and I feel that comes from the idea that I think he's way better offensive. Well, completely wrong. I think he's way better defensively than
Yeah.
he is offensively. And to play like modern fullback, I think you need to be able to damage teams in the final third. And then
Hmm.
you've obviously got Souza, like the new guy that I think they signed him in January. He wasn't a lot of money, but he's very young still. I think like when I think of Souza, he has like all of the athletic ability to be quite a good fullback, but still incredibly young and very raw. I don't think he's particularly suitable to play what he needs from a left back right now, mainly because I think he needs just as much stability as he can get, and I think that probably isn't the most stable option you could make. Overall, like the way I think about their fullback profiles, I think they could work, but I still think they need a standout starter, like a progressive starter. I don't quite trust Poro to do that on a consistent basis. And without seeing it from like a really long period from Udogi, I think I need to see that from someone else, personally.
Yeah, I think I'd agree with that. I don't really see them. I don't see Spurs using that width and having that width available for them.
Yeah,
I think a large part of it is that wasn't really necessarily what they were built for in the last couple of years,
exactly.
and so that's going to be one of the areas that Deserby really needs to find a solution for, whether it's in the current squad or in the transfer window.
Yeah, and I mean, hopefully they can get to the transfer window where they can still sign solid players. But we're
Yeah.
getting to what I think is the most important part of De Zerbi's engine, the pivot players. We'll get into the profile and then we'll talk through the current squad. So, like I said, I think the most important part of De Zerbi's outfield, I'd say it's key to the method, really, of deep build up and utilizing those artificial transitions, as I said. Some of the qualities that they need from my perspective is like the ability to deal with like really aggressive pressing situations in crowded areas, mainly because of how the press is invited on and the nature of how they need to receive under pressure. Quick circulation to release attackers early. If you think about those artificial transitions, it's the ability for the wingers to recognize when the pivot players are getting the ball and deal with those kind of big long passes in behind. Patience to keep the ball when the pressing trap quite hasn't worked for them. And what I mean by that is essentially is like if you're not getting those clear kind of passing lanes into midfield open, they're just going to keep circulating the ball and finding
Hmm.
ways to continually open up that central space. And that might mean holding on to it for a bit longer. Awareness to cover wide areas when fullbacks go, like Ben alluded to just now, like fullbacks are pretty aggressive. They'll get quite high up, sometimes quite narrow. So you need the ability to recognize of when you need to drop into kind of wide areas to defend those fullbacks. Aggression to counter press immediately after the loss. I think that's really important too, because there are going to be times when you are circulating in midfield and you actively lose the ball, so you need to be combative as soon as you do. The mobility to fill centre back zones when a defender steps out, like I touched on with Van der Ven, likes to move out of the centre back area quite regularly. I think as a
Hmm.
fullback or as a defensive midfielder in this system, you need to be able to recognize when you need to cover those spaces, and I think that's really important here. And ultimately, tracking of central runners through the heart of the team. I think that's ultimately really important when it comes to teams trying to overload De Zerbi's structure in midfield. That can happen at times. Teams looking to use those third man runners through the midfield because of how the pivots orientate. I think it's really important that the pivots can understand when they need to go with runners and when they're safe to not go. Let's get through the profiles then of the players. So when I ask you just point blank, are there any defensive midfield players at Tottenham that you think are good?
Absolutely not. As you're going through this, I was thinking about like I was thinking about how important rotational play is in this and being able to cover off for each other. I can't think of I can't think of people like right off the top of my head
Okay.
who could be good for this. Who do you have in mind?
Right. So let's go through the core of the defensive midfield players that they have then. So they've got Yves Bissouma, who obviously has played under De Zerbi at some point, has familiarity with the system and all of that. Don't think a particularly good long-term solution, quite frankly, but he has the ability to take the ball in difficult areas and kind of move the ball short to then play the ball long. He's probably the most ideal short-term solution for me.
Okay.
For me, the most suitable long term fit is Lucas Bergvall. I think Bergvall is actually a really good footballer,
Yeah.
really good at playing with the ball under pressure, really good at getting out of really, I'd say, negative situations when he is under pressure. The way I would describe his profile, he's like a central connector. He's very press resistant, and the stats show that he's a really productive dribbler as well. So his deep receptions per 90 and 91st percentile, meaning he's really good at dropping deep and getting on the ball consistently. His progressive receptions per 90 and 94th percentile, so he's not only good at dropping deep and getting on the ball, but he's good at finding space to open up himself in those progressive areas. Progressive carries per 90, he's 91st percentile, so he's really good at getting it in that second phase and driving it into that third phase. And carries into the final third that follows up to that, he's 89th percentile. So for me, that paints the picture of a defensive midfielder who's able to find space open. Not quite the passing profile I think De Zerbi would like, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I think
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, like the way he's able to pick up the ball, find his way out of tricky situations, and move the ball forward from midfield to defense is really valuable. And I think he is the best long term solution for me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I'm trying not to be petty, and whenever you name these players, I'm trying not to say who. But no, Bergvall, I think, is definitely one of those players who I can respect and has a lot of potential and could help De Zerbi in future seasons.
Fair. Again, you're an Arsenal fan, so you're allowed to dislike Spurs. Polinia, I don't think Polinia is a particularly great fit at all. I think when we look at
Yeah.
Polinia's overall profile, he is a combative defensive midfielder, and I'll give you some stats to prove that. He's over 90th percentile per 90 for all of these defensive stats. Defensive ground all wins per 90. He is over 90th percentile. His net duels won, so most of the duels he contests that he wins over 90th percentile, which is nuts. Defensive ground all win percentage, so most of the duels he contests, he wins. For me, like, that's a very defensive profile. And based on the rest of the players in the squad, we'll cover it in a sec, but I don't think he quite suits. Probably not the best idea. Gray, press resistant, really good spatial intelligence for his age. Not the best out of possession profile, but I think he has definite scope to improve there given his age. I think he's been one of the better Spurs players this year.
Yeah. He's
But
been
I don't
flexible
know.
and comes in like
Yes,
when needed. Like he's even played a winger or not a winger, but like a fullback position when required. So yeah, lots of potential
exactly.
there.
So he has the ability to come inside. He has the ability to recognize when he needs to play out wide. I do, though, think he will take some maturation if he's going to excel the way De Zerbi wants to play football.
Hmm.
But I'd be excited to see that because I think he's a quality player. And then I'd say two profiles that I think are very similar. Saar. I think Saar's a good player, by the way. But I don't think he's a particularly like a. I think the De Zerbi pivots need very defined profiles. I think Saar is a bit too much of a generalist.
Hmm.
Really good at kind of off ball stuff, I think. Really good energy. Has the ability to kind of take the ball in space at times, not a lot of the time. But ultimately, I think if you have deficiencies and don't have clear standouts in one of the other pivot positions, I personally don't think Saar could be a starter. If you want to continue to progress further, Gallagher, I think a very similar profile to Saar. The funny thing about Gallagher actually is he has some really interesting standout dribbling stats that I thought I would mention because you kind of wouldn't attribute it with Gallagher. Deep
Hmm.
progressions per 90 is 92nd percentile, and deep carries per 90 he's 99th percentile. That means he's taking the ball in the second phase a lot and taking it to the third phase like on his own. pretty regularly. When you compare it to other midfielders in the top 5 leagues, typically not what you think of. It's Gallagher. And that might be down to the fact that I've not watched Gallagher enough and I haven't seen him do that enough. But when I think of Gallagher, I think of like a more similar to Sarr profile. And like when I paint the picture of all of these players, I'm giving you a picture of there isn't like a clear standout. And ultimately for me, I think that needs to be their marquee signing. I think they need to make a signing in the defensive midfield and one of the pivots that is a clear passing profile. Like
Yeah.
clear passing profile. You take the ball under pressure, ping the ball through to forwards, utilize those artificial transitions. Right now, they don't have one, and I don't know if he can really play his football adequately if he doesn't have it. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I'd like a midfield general who's able to
Yeah.
really dictate play, pass the ball while progress when required.
Or Regista.
Regista, I mean, Pascal Gross kind of comes up to mind. Like he helped him a lot at Brighton, and that's the profile
Jorginho, that
yeah.
type of profile. They just don't have it.
I feel like as we continue progressing up, like there is definitely a position there for pivotal players, but also, I mean, moving up into attack, like let's move into wingers. So
Okay.
let's look at what he has, what De Zerbi plays as with wingers. It's a very classic kind of wide winger that's gonna pin back those opposition fullbacks. They're gonna isolate they're gonna isolate them on one and then attack from the outside to inside based on cues that they're waiting for overall.
Which is typically for De Zerbi's wingers.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, the cues that they're looking for is they're looking for this is kind of nerdy, but they're looking for space in between centre backs and fullbacks to where they can create doubt in fullback's mind going in or out. So they probably don't have cover, and they know that, so they have to follow them on the inside to create room for fullbacks overlapping or underlapping. Is basically what I mean.
Yeah, exactly. Like they are waiting for the doubt of where do I defend?
Where do I go?
Space? Where do I go? And once they do that, they carry the ball at speed once the press is broken and move to that inside channel over on the far side. I think that they also actively attack the far post, especially like they're looking for pass, not necessarily looking for the goal. They're looking for where can we exploit the best goal opportunity. And then when they are on the counter press, they're very narrow and they're really they narrow to the press without really switching it off. When I think about a classic winger for De Zerbi's profile, I think about one of my favorite wingers that played for De Zerbi, Leo Trossard. And then like that kind of profile he utilized very early on. Of obviously he let Trossard go, and because there were some issues there with Trossard's minutes, but that's also because Matoma then was coming up and is also a fantastic winger on that left side for De Zerbi.
Funny because I think Matoma is closer to a De Zerbi profile than Trossard actually is.
Mm-hmm.
If you kind of think about all the things that you just highlighted, so ability to hold width, I think Trossard is less effective really out wide. Isolate defenders 1v1. Trossard can beat people 1v1, but that's not really what he's known to do. I think Matoma is more of like a 1v1 specialist. I think a few years ago, he was one of the biggest standout players 1v1, especially under De Zerbi. Like, that's what he was really known to do. And I think he needs profiles like that, like in those wide positions. I mean, to be fair, like the way a lot of positional football has gotten is isolate the fullback and see what you can do one-on-one. If you can beat them, we might be able to create something. And I think De Zerbi's football isn't any different to that.
Yeah. Should we look at Spurs and see if they have the kind of profiles then?
Let's do it.
I mean, when you think about that kind of profile, you have Kudus, right? And I feel like he is one of the more suitable people in the squad. Kudus can hold out width and can just literally terrorize fullbacks, can go outside and inside and move the ball very, very quickly. And he will really, really help support that kind of like wide play. I think he will need to improve hitting the back post and seeing that switch. This can be selfish. Great players are selfish, and he wants to go for the goal. But sometimes I think he might have to look at the opposite flank to see the late runner coming in to spread that play. And I know we were talking about. I mean, if we look at just Kudus's overall performance in his dribbling, right? He is in the 96th percentile per 90 for successful dribbles, 94th percentile for forward pass percentage. and
Surprising one.
89% in the progressive pass percentage. So very direct player, is able to kind of really demand that attacking space in the top out wide. I'd be interested to see how well he comes into the league. I believe he's coming off of injury. He should be available, right?
Yeah,
Or is he still out for a few
he,
more weeks?
he's coming back into the starting 11. I think he's
Yeah.
just about coming back, so we should see him relatively soon. I think.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like he will be an impactful player as he comes back in. Moving on to Matthias Tell. He's still young, but he has good ability. One on one, he has like a lot of the work that's required and the qualities. I still remember, I feel like Matthias Tell was probably one of the better players during the North London Derby.
Yeah,
Like
him and
it was
Mwani.
yeah, like him and Wanu were good. They were able to actually dominate on the left side of the pitch. I think like what he will really have to continue working on is box crashing to really make it work. Like he needs to be able to get up the pitch and into the box in order to really become a bit more threatening. He does have that wide play. He is technical. He can dribble around players. He can feint. He's in the 95th percentile for successful dribbles per 90, the 4th percentile for carry x threat per 90, and 85th percentiles for deep carries per 90. So really someone who's attuned to holding the ball and running up the pitch. I think it's just that kind of overall that end game that really needs to improve on.
Yeah, just kind of end product. I think young players typically struggle with that anyway, to be honest with you. But I think overall, like, I think like the outline you basically gave there, really good at carrying the ball. The actual deep progressions is very interesting because for me, on the top of my head, that makes me think he's having to drop deeper than he probably should as a winger to pick up the ball. And from my perspective, that's not like the indication of a particularly good offensive structure. You should be running off the last man or
Yeah.
facing your fullback. But
I mean,
I think
when we were talking about fullbacks, I almost thought about Matthias Tell just because how often he is playing that deep back. He's playing this like wing back position a lot of times for them
it's true, and
because he's dropping back so
yeah,
deep.
and because he's having to do it because they lack
Yeah,
progressors of the ball.
yeah,
And,
exactly.
and that makes sense and it bears out in the stats. Let me touch on Xavi Simons. So, what position is Xavi Simons in your head?
I mean, I don't think he's a winger. I
No.
think he's more of a midfielder, more of a 10-ish
Yeah.
8, like a hybrid 10-8 is what I see him as.
Okay. So, from my perspective, what I've always looked at as like a strong part of Xavi Simons' profile is his ability to kind of drop deep, find gaps in half spaces, pick up the ball, be quite connective. He's not like a big progressive passer. He's really good at understanding where he needs to drive with the ball and giving it to players based on those types of positions. I do think one of the issues that he might find in this specific system is De Zerbi has at times played with a 10, but like Ben touched on earlier, that 10 is more of like the profile of McAllister. It's not quite the defensive freedom profile of Simmons. And that's really the way I would frame it. I think Simmons has the types of ability on the ball that would really benefit the Spurs team, very similar to how Madison and Kulusevski would. But at the same time, I just don't know why he gets in a De Zerbi structure because I don't look at him as like a winger option. And like, if De Zerbi doesn't play with the traditional 10, I just don't know where he plays, quite frankly. And that's probably my biggest issue with him. Some standout stats that he has: final third entries per 90 is 91st percentile, very much an attacking midfield stat, and carries into the final third per 90, again, a very much an attacking midfield stat. That basically insinuates a player finding space in between the lines, picking up the ball and moving it forward. He's an attacking midfielder. They're going to have to find a way to use him. They bought him for a lot of money. And he is a quality footballer, at least for me. Let's get into strikers. So I think this is the last of the positions. I think we've painted a pretty mixed picture so far. So there are some squad holes that are needed to be filled, and there are, I think, some positions that can be used in the structure that De Zerbi wants to play. But for strikers, for me, let's think about some of the strikers he's had. So at Marseille, I think he played with like a Greenwood. I can't remember who was the actual main striker though. Actually, I'm going to check that. So Greenwood played at striker. Well, Greenwood played off the right.
Mm-hmm.
Who played off the left? Let's look at that. So who played off the left in that game for Marseille was Igor Paixão, and then you've got Gory in the center, and then Greenwood off the right. So Gory as a profile is like a connective profile for me, like ability to kind of occupy center backs, but ultimately still wants to drop deep. But I do think the big part of how they play at times is the ability to kind of pin center backs to protect that central space for others to run into, which ultimately leads into like really secure back to goal play. The ability to receive the ball and keep it moving with your back to goal, like almost defending center backs coming at you from behind. Needs to have willingness, like I said, to kind of drop and connect the attack with attacking midfielders or wingers, pivot players. Rotation with the 10 and wide players if necessary as well. So needs the ability to create rotational positions throughout the attacking third. Capacity to kind of run in behind when the press is broken. Actually, in my head, I can think of quite a few situations where his strikers have done that. So Evan Ferguson at times, Danny Welbeck at times when he was there. Pressing intelligence, I think that's actually incredibly important. He presses in quite an aggressive situation. Although with Marseille, he was pressing less, but I think it was that's based on more of the profiles of his midfield age profiles. But pressing is really important, especially from the front and how he plays. And then needs to be dangerous, like needs to understand if I am the one to lead the press, I have to go and hope others follow me. Can't have any form of like, what's the term? Apprehension when it comes to pressing. When I ask you about Spurs' strikers, what would you say?
They don't necessarily sound like
Not
the
great, are they?
profile. No, not really. I mean, no.
So what I would say is I think Solanke is a really good all-round football player. I do. He's good, kind of good at everything. He's not particularly great at anything. Actually, when I was looking at stats for Solanke, I was kind of impressed by his overperformance when it comes to like finishing.
Mm-hmm.
But he just doesn't get a lot of chances, so he doesn't get to do that a lot. But I think his overall on the ball ability, really good at dribbling, actually quite direct, really good at receiving the ball with defensive pressure and behind him. I think he's actually a decent profile. The question is, I think if you are aiming for higher positions, you could probably level up on Solanke.
Yeah.
But I think for the position they're in, I think he'd actually be quite suitable for it. Richarlison, I think, is very similar to Solanke, but not quite as athletic and not quite as good as dribbling. So I don't think he's a particularly good option, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same money, but I think Solanke is considerably better. Overall, throughout all of the picture we've basically painted throughout the Spurs squad and what De Zerbi needs, I'd say they have really big foundational players that need to be purchased for him to be able to play his ideal structure of football.
Mm-hmm.
I would say pivot players will be an issue, at least for me. Maybe they can figure out a way to bypass that in the last few games of the season to stay up, but I think that will be a consistent problem if they do want to play that type of football. I guess the ultimate question is do you think it's risky trying to implement like a different style of football whilst you're ultimately in a transition? Like, not only are you in a transition, but you're trying to play the type of football to keep you in the division. I think it's a
Yeah.
question to be had.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. There was a club in the Premier League last season that had a huge change in managers. And because the new incoming manager didn't change too much and trusted in the team and what was built, they won the Premier League. Like the way the teams play sometimes is more important than enforcing your tactics, you know?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Spurs have not been good. Any change could, and I'm not trying to do this to disparage Spurs. Like I could do that really easy, but that just like they are, they are, they're 17th. They are 17th again, and so like something needs to change. And at this point, I think it's a risk worth taking. Try something new and see if it works. I think De Zerbi just has to be very adaptable to understand that, he has to try the tactic when it can work with the people who are available, if they become available against certain sides. But apart from that, it might just be a bunch of smash and grabs for the next few games.
It's kind of scary for me, man. Like the idea of implementing something new when you're obviously struggling so badly. I think it's kind of a strange position to be in, but we'll see how it goes. I mean, here's the thing. it's not like the standard of quality needs to be particularly high. You literally probably need 6 points. If he can secure 6 points, they'll secure safety, and then he can start to implement his philosophy. So overall, do you think it's a good or a bad thing?
The appointment?
Yeah, yeah. So for me, it's very long term. I think it's somewhat positive because I still think he's a weird character.
Yeah.
In the short term, I think it's very risky.
Yeah. You know what, Jack? I am gonna be petty. Either way, it's gonna be good for me, is what I'm gonna say.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. So that's Tottenham. Weird situation. Like we said, we'll do what we can to kind of get to the overviews at the end of the game. But I think what we probably should do is let's leave the Salah farewell for this episode. We'll introduce it in the next episode, and then we'll get straight into the Southampton and Arsenal game. So
Yeah, let's do that.
there are big FA Cup clashes this weekend, quarterfinals. So there are 4 games to be played. One of those games is Southampton versus Arsenal at St. Mary's. Tell me how scared of Southampton you are, Ben, and how much you're going to struggle against them.
Jack, I hear the sarcasm in your voice, and which is rare. I'm not very scared, but I still have apprehension. Coming off of a loss, uh, after last weekend. I don't know. I'm nervy. This game can be nervy. This could be a banana peel, right? It's a game that we should easily win. There's not a lot Southampton is missing right now. But at the same time, they're doing great in the championship. They've won 14 matches across all of their competitions. In their last 6 matches, they've had 5 wins and 1 draw. They've had 3 straight home wins with 3 clean sheets. Their last home loss was on January 17th versus Hull. These are a lot of really scary things, but I have to put it into perspective. They are 6th in the championship. Arsenal's 1st in the Premier League. And although they have done well in the FA Cup, I think they beat Fulham by 1-0 from 1.97 XG from 5 shots, while Fulham, I think, had over 15
Yeah,
shots
they
or something like
battered them.
that.
Yeah.
They're underperforming their XG differential right now, and they are underperforming their set piece goals, and they have an 11.2 PPDA. Like, this sounds like a mid-table team at maximum that Arsenal
So
can go out and beat.
let's say this. I'll bet you $5 that they don't create a chance higher than 0.3 XG.
Like a singular chance higher than 0.3
A
XG or a
singular
total?
chance, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll take that bet. $5.
Okay. So I am in favor of Arsenal. So they do not.
Yeah. So they
Okay.
do not, which means I'm saying that Arsenal is going to give up at least one chance that's
Yes.
higher than
Exactly.
0.3 XG.
Okay. I'm willing to take that back because I don't think they get near it personally, but
You
we'll
know
see how it
what?
goes.
I watched Arsenal not understand how to play football for 90 straight minutes 2 weeks
Yeah,
ago. Sometimes things happen and you lose your heads. So that's what I'm counting on.
Yeah,
I think there will be a head loss moment. But yeah, I think like overall, they have the advantage that they're under the lights at St. Mary's. It's their home pitch. They're really wanting a promotion. They're going to gun for that promotion. And also another part of that, if I can go to Arsenal, is Arsenal is going to be heavily rotating. There were plenty of players who didn't go on international duty because they were injured, and yes, this could be a Fergie-esque kind of tactic, of
be.
keeping.
It's
It could be.
absolute bullshit.
It could be.
Come on, man.
Odegaard, Saliba, Timber, Gabriel Magalhaes, Trossard didn't go to international duty. There are people who came back early. Zubimendi, Knock, Bukayo.
Like half a team comes back early.
Bukayo definitely came back early. Nani was injured and Kapia was injured, so they had to come back from duty. So yeah, we are pretty much like entire first team.
So hilarious.
Didn't go on international duty. You know who did go on international duty? David Raya, who is arguably one of Gyökeres, and who is arguably one of the best keepers in the world right now, but still cannot get on the Spanish team, which is wild.
Kepa would be Southampton's highest earner.
Yeah, and also goal scorer. So I'm sorry,
Yeet.
Kappa. That was mean. That was mean. But yeah, I mean, like overall, I think Arsenal will win this. I don't think that there's a lot to it. I'm just gonna be
No.
nervy. I hope it's just a nice afternoon of drinking for me. If it's not, but
Wait, it's
yeah,
afternoon?
yeah, the match kicks off at 12 p.m.
You fucker.
12 p.m. Yeah, you have a 4:45 that morning. I have a 12
4:45.
p.m. I'm
Man,
gonna wake up. I'm gonna get a workout in. I'm gonna walk to the Bluefin and watch this in
that
daylight.
sucks. It's gonna be man. Okay then.
Predictions. Should we do
Why
predictions?
can't why can't we play that game at noon?
I don't know. It doesn't make sense. Why can't you all play that? That game should be at noon. Like
Okay.
your game should be at noon.
No fair. Absolutely no fair. What's your prediction for this?
I'm gonna go 1-3.
1-3. So you
Yeah,
think they score. So you think they
I think they
score
score.
for chance that's
I think they
greater than
score. Yeah, yeah. I do think that. I don't know if it's gonna be off the chance it's greater than 0.3 XG, but I think they will score.
I think
Or they will
it's
get on the score sheet.
I
I
think
will
it's
say.
by the same margin, but I think Arsenal win 2-0.
Okay.
And I don't think they get a sniff. Really. Let's talk about Liverpool City. So like this should be a big game, but if I'm like apprehensive about this, I apologize from the Liverpool perspective, but they've not filled me with a bunch of joy this year. Talk about City a bit. So just come off of a really big Carabao Cup win. Sorry, Ben, but it's a pretty big result. One of the bigger results of their season so far, for sure. In terms of injuries, they are pretty banged up at centre back, so we might see a similar combination. Although I don't know if Gahey is cup tied. I don't know if he is actually, so I can't say that. But they do have Stones, Gvardiol, and Diaz still out, so that is quite a lot of depth that's gone from the centre back position for them. Form obviously beat Newcastle in the last round. They did actually win 10-1 in this competition, Ben. Did you know
That is wild. Yeah, yeah.
that?
I remember seeing that.
I guess I'll ask you this. How much do you think this competition matters to Man City?
Oh, it's gonna matter to them.
It
I
is,
mean,
isn't it?
yeah. Like this is one of their opportunities to get a trophy. Like they need this to get at least a domestic double, if
I
not
agree.
still be in the race for the treble. They're gonna put everything into this match.
So the fact for me that they got knocked out of the Champions League means that this is a different type of game for them. I expect them to line up actually really strong for this, given the fact that they don't play midweek and they play next weekend in the Premier League. This is going to be a full strength City team.
Yeah, yeah.
Dreadful. Keys to victory. How do you think they win? So for me, what they need to do in this game. So let's think about everything I've complained about the past 6 weeks for Liverpool. So exploiting Liverpool's fullback height and depth. So when Kirkes gets really high, I'll get on the fullback in a minute, the right fullback in a minute. When Kirkes gets high, the ability for wingers to drop into those spaces. So think Semenyo, think Doku, think Savino, like all of those like 1v1 wingers that they have. Create overloads in Liverpool's midfield. When you do that, we've not shown the ability for our players to adequately close down space at times when we are played through. And the other thing that leads into that is manipulating the way our forward line presses. I don't think we have any good presses in our forward line anymore. And that kind of sticks consistently as well with stats as well. I think Ekatike is okay, but the unit as a whole in the first line of the press isn't particularly good. Exploit that, play it into the ultimately some of the best deep progressors in the world, which are Bernardo and Rodri. If you do that, you can hurt Liverpool. And then the last thing, ultimately for me, is control and not chaos. Control the ball. Do not get into a basketball game of Liverpool. I think that's kind of what will benefit us in this game if that does tend to happen. But if you control the game, score early, I think is important. Even if you don't, I still think City will have a bunch of territorial dominance. Yeah, that's how you beat Liverpool. Control,
Yeah.
exploit fullbacks, play through the middle, abuse how bad we are at pressing from the front. That's
You know
basically
what
what I would
City's
say.
not going to do in this game? They're not going to put four forwards in a narrow line,
They might.
10 yards off of year 18.
They might.
They might. It worked for them.
Yeah, it might. Although I would say the reason they did that, it's difficult, isn't it? Because the reason they did that in your game was to defend how you guys try and overload like that immediate center of the pitch. We do that as well, but we're way less effective at it because we don't have players that are as good at getting open in those spaces and ultimately what they do when they get in those spaces because they're so bad at dealing with man-to-man structures that they just end up either losing the ball or not doing particularly well. Let's talk about injuries. So I've been told that I'm wrong about this, but I've not seen anything from the club that I guess contradicts me otherwise. Frimpong, at least from what I know, is injured, so he's not going to play in this game. He came on as a sub for Holland and come up with an injury. I've seen on social media since then, and that's not true. And he practiced. I've not seen any evidence of that, so I'm going to say what I knew. Allison would be out for this game, another muscle injury. Surprise, surprise. Alexander Isak actually was spotted back in training, which is very exciting. I do not expect to see him here. I don't even expect to see him on the bench, to be honest with you. Liverpool have done quite well in this competition so far. 10 goals scored, only 2 conceded. We've beat 2 Premier League opposition in that time as well, and Brighton and Wolves. We did pretty well against Barnsley as well, but no one particularly cares about Barnsley. No offense to Barnsley fans, if you're listening. Talking points from my perspective. I mean, what do we need to discuss? Is this like do or die for Arne Slot, Ben? What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if he does not win this competition or at least get to the finals, I think
this could be, and I hate to say this, but I think this could be Liverpool's genuine last hope at a trophy. We'll go through the Champions League previews at some point. I'm not insanely optimistic about it, but for this, I think there is a clear path to the final for Liverpool.
Yeah.
So yeah, like one of our better opportunities at trophy. How do I see us lining up? So I think Salah might be back for this.
Yeah.
Which I think has a bit of influence on his farewell tour, so to speak. Mamadashvili, I think you'll see Gomez start at right back. If Frimpong was injured at some point, I can see him being kept back again. 2 centre backs, we have no others, so they have to play. Left back, I could see Robertson starting this game actually. He's going to need like a pretty disciplined defensive performance. I can see Robertson starting. Curtis Jones should play, but I don't think he will because he loves picking McAllister. So probably see McAllister, Gravenberch. This is where I don't know because he could do something annoying and put Szoboszlai at right back. And in that case, he'll put Wirtz at attacking midfield, Gakpo at left wing, Ekitike at striker, and Salah on the right. But if he plays Szoboszlai at attacking midfield, then Gakpo doesn't play and Wirtz starts off the left, which I don't love. And then I think we'll see Ekitike play through the middle either way. And I'd love to see the Egyptian King come back in. He's just announced he's about done with Liverpool.
Mm-hmm.
Start scoring us some goals in your last season, though, please. I would like that a lot. And the way I think Liverpool win this game is making this a tennis match. Back and forth, up and down. Make it chaos because I don't think we can win in a really disciplined, structured game of football at the moment. We've tried that in the last 2 games we played against them, and we're losing 5-1 on aggregate, so it's not great. Take advantage of City being risky in build-up.
Mm-hmm.
Press high, regardless of what happens. Press high, try and win the ball and build up, especially if they have those centre-back deficiencies because of what they have out. Try and utilize that and try and win the ball up high. Be prepared, and if that doesn't work, Liverpool, you have to be prepared to suffer a bit. Defend territory. If you have to play a low block, play a low block. We actually did it last year at the Etihad, and it worked quite well for us, but we're just not in that same mindset as we were last year. That being said, anything can happen in this game. It is a one-off game. I would love to see Liverpool get a result. I'm going to have to wake up at 4:30 for this and probably be quite hungover. Oh, come on, Liverpool. Please do not let me down. What's your prediction for this, Ben?
You know what? I think it's going to be 2-1 Liverpool. I think they're going to do something.
So I'll ask you this. How do you expect Liverpool to beat City at the Etihad?
I expect City's hubris to get the best of them, and I expect the Egyptian King to take advantage of that. I think he has something to prove and something to show and something special for the end of the season, is all I'll say.
You might have just talked me into a Liverpool prediction, Ben. I'll tell you that.
But football's a beautiful game, man. Something can happen, and I think this is the moment, right? Like I think it's the moment.
I'm personally of the ilk where I cannot predict Liverpool to lose. I do not like doing it. Liverpool going to win 2-1. I don't know if they're going to if they're gonna win 2-1, but let's hope and pray that they're gonna win 2-1. Let's do that. So those are the FA Cup games. We've got our overview section to come now, which I'm very much looking forward to. So what we're doing here is we are previewing, very loose term previewing, but we're looking at the next 5 games, and then both myself and Ben are going to come up with a prediction of the amount of points each of these teams get from the next 5 games. So we're covering title race, UCL race, which is top 5, at least at the moment, and then relegation battle, including Tottenham. Ha ha ha. Let's get into the title race then. So I'll cover Arsenal, and then you cover your opponents.
Okay.
So Arsenal's next 5. Bournemouth at home, Man City away, which is a great game. Newcastle at home, Fulham at home, and West Ham away. How many points do they get?
I'm going to say 12 points here. I'm going to say they win everything except for City.
You reckon?
I think so.
Okay, so for me, I think you beat Bournemouth. I think you draw against City. I think you beat Newcastle. I think you beat Fulham, and I think you beat West Ham. So I'm going to say
13?
Yeah, 13.
Oof. All right.
City, take your opponents.
Yeah, City next 5. They have Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Burnley away, Everton away, Brentford at home. Oh man.
So I'm going to say they beat Chelsea. They draw with Arsenal, like I predicted.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Burnley. They beat Everton. And they draw with Brentford.
Okay.
So I'm 3, 7, 10, 11 points.
Jack, I am, you know how you said you don't like to bet against or predict a loss against Liverpool. I can't do I think it's all wins. I think it's all wins for City. I think they get 15 points. I think it's going to get a little closer. But we will still be able to win on the final day of the league.
Why would you even talk that into existence?
I think that's what's going to happen. I think that is exactly what's like what I would like it like what I want to happen. I want them to get 11 points out of the next 5, but I think they're on the I've seen this too many times, and if I'm going to do this analytically and not with my heart, I think that's what's going to happen.
So my heart's not in it either way, and I think they get 11 points.
All right. I hope you're right, Jack. I hope you are right. I hope Arsenal get 13 points and City get 11 points. Should we do?
Yeah, let's do it. So let's start with the team that are third.
Yeah.
Man United.
Yeah.
So next 5. And they do play, I mean, there are some games against similar qualifying opponents here, which makes it very interesting for me. So Man United's next 5, Leeds at home, Chelsea away, Brentford at home, Liverpool at home, and Sunderland away. How many points do you think they get, Ben?
I think they get, 3, 4, 7. I think they get 10 points out of this.
10. Where are they coming from?
Leeds is going to win. They're going to win against Leeds, draw against Chelsea. I think they're going to win against Brentford, so that's 7 points. I think they're going to lose against Liverpool at home. And I think Sunderland away, they'll win.
Okay, so I think that's fair. That's not too far from me. I think they beat Leeds at home. I think they draw to Chelsea. I think they draw to Brentford. I think they lose to Liverpool. I'm never predicting them beating us. I'm sorry. And then I think they beat Sunderland away. So I'm going to say 6, 7 points. No, 8 points. 8 points because they draw against Brentford. So 8 points.
I'll do Chelsea next. Chelsea have City at home, United at home, Brighton away, Forest at home, Liverpool away. Okay, so City, that's law.
Do you think they beat Brighton?
I think they beat Brighton.
Man,
I'm gonna say 8 points.
8 points. Where are they getting those 8 points from?
I think they're gonna draw United. They're gonna lose to City. Draw United, win against Brighton, win against Forest, draw against Liverpool.
Okay, so I'm gonna say a loss against City. Actually, I was a loss against City, so I'm gonna stick with that. Man United at home, I think that's a draw. Like I said. Brighton away, I think that's also a draw. Forest at home, I think that's a W. And Liverpool away, they're going to lose. So they're going to take 5 points. Rafinha's in freefall, man. Rafinha's in freefall. I'll take the red men. Liverpool next 5. Fulham at home. Everton away. Big fucking game. Palace at home. Man United away and Chelsea at home. So, what do you think, Ben?
I think they're going to win. Fulham home, Everton away in their new stadium. They have to. They have to win against Everton away in their new stadium. I think. I think they're going to draw Palace at home. And then what did I say for United? I said that they're going to win United. And I said that they were going to draw Chelsea. Oh, that is 11 points.
Man, I can't remember when we got 11 points over 5 games last. I'll be honest with you. But I'm going into this, deludedly optimistic. Fulham, we have to win. Everton, I don't think we win. I think we draw that game. Everton away, we typically don't play well at. Palace at home, I think we beat them. So I think at that stage we have 7 points. We beat United, so we have 10 points, and we draw against Chelsea. So I guess I'm agreeing with you. 11 points. Yeah.
I'll do Villa. We have Forest away, Sunderland home, Fulham away, Spurs home, Burnley away. I think it's going to be 11 points here too, with draws coming at Forest away,
yes,
and Fulham away, and then win the others.
Agree.
If they don't win Sunderland home, Spurs home, and Burnley away, it'd be wild if they can't do that.
Okay.
13. Okay.
Yeah, I think they do 13 points. So I think they draw against Forest, because I think Forest desperately need the points, and they have that type of style to stifle Villa a little bit. Sunderland at home, actually they just win the rest. So they beat Sunderland at home, they beat Fulham away, they beat Spurs at home, and they beat Burnley away. And I'll correct what I said just now. I'm going to predict a Liverpool win against Chelsea at home. So I'm going to say 13 points.
All right.
Fuck Chelsea. They can't beat us at Anfield, man. Won't be having it. So that's the overview of the UCL as well. Very interesting how that ends up, actually. I'm surprised how little we predicted for Chelsea. That must be because we think they're currently struggling and won't continue to do well, right?
Yeah, I don't imagine that they're gonna find form anytime soon.
So the funny thing about this is the teams. I think United are probably gonna. If I think with my head instead of my heart, I think United are probably going to amass the most points in this period. 1 game a week and all that. Liverpool, we have to turn it on now. If we don't turn it on now, then top 5 really is a question. They have no choice. They have to turn it on now. That's why I predicted that. I think Chelsea are in a bit of freefall. Players are coming out talking about leaving. Rafinha is talking about praising balls. We need to close that shop. To be fair, he might actually go in the summer. We don't know that. And I think Villa, I think they have probably the most favourable fixtures here, Villa. I would say, actually, obviously not part of these predictions, Liverpool play Villa just after Chelsea, Ben.
Yeah.
Those 3 games, man, are so decisive.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy.
Mad. Let's get into relegation then. So, let's get into Leeds. So, Leeds next 5. Man United, Wolves at home. Man United away, Wolves at home. Bournemouth away, Burnley at home, and Spurs away. What's your prediction?
I think 9 points here. They're going to lose to United and Bournemouth, but they'll win the others.
Okay, so I think a loss against United. Actually, I think they draw against Wolves. I'm backing Rob Edwards. They're doing pretty well at the moment. I think they lose against Bournemouth away. I think they win against Burnley at home, and I think they draw against Tottenham away. So for me, that's 5, 6. That's not a bad call, actually, if you think about it, given the position they're in. You've predicted 9 points, which I think is extremely high. But we'll see how that goes. Talk us through Forest.
Forest, I have Villa home, Burnley home, Sunderland away, Chelsea away, Newcastle home. What you thinking here?
I'm going to go with a draw against Villa, a win against Burnley, a draw against Sunderland, a loss against Chelsea, and Newcastle. Newcastle are bad away from home. I think a draw.
Okay.
So for me, it's
6 points.
6 points.
I got him. I got him 4 points. I think they'll draw that Villa game because I said Villa's going to draw them. I think they'll win
Okay.
against Burnley, and I think they're going to drop points against Sunderland, Chelsea, and Newcastle.
Yeah, I mean, I have them losing against Chelsea. I think Chelsea will win that game, especially given the fact that they're away. I think Chelsea will win that at Stamford Bridge, but Newcastle, they're just not. They've not been great away from home this year, and Forest need points, so I think they'll they'll get something out of that game. They could even win that game, but I'm going to predict a draw. Let's go into Spurs. So Spurs, Sunderland away,
Uh huh.
Brighton at home, Wolves away, Villa away, and Leeds at home. How many points are they getting?
Man, it's really hard for me to figure this. No, 0 points. I think they're getting 0 points, Jack.
So you think they genuinely get 0 points?
Genuinely, Jack, I don't see. I mean, maybe they'll get 1 point, maybe 3 points from Wolves, but I don't see them beating Sunderland. I don't see them beating current Brighton. I don't like Hurstler, but I think he's going to pull something out from them. Maybe they'll get a point or three at Wolves, but that's Wolves away. Wolves are, they're just having fun now.
They
Villa,
are.
I don't think they're getting points. They're like, I don't think they're gonna get points at Leeds, and I said Leeds is gonna win against Spurs, so like logically, I have to give them a loss there as well. Is it gonna be 0 points? No, it's not going to be 0 points, but one can hope, one can dream.
So for me, I'm going to go a loss against Sunderland away, a loss against Brighton at home, a draw against Wolves away, a loss against Villa away, and a draw against Leeds at home. So I'm going to say 2 points. Depending on like how much De Zerbi manages to turn this round, we don't know. We don't know. Let's get
I'll
to
do
the
the
next
last one. Yeah, West Ham, Wolves at home, Palace away, Everton away, Brentford away, Arsenal home.
I think they beat Wolves.
Okay.
I think they lose to Palace. I think they lose to Everton. I think they lose. I think they draw against Brentford, and I think they lose to Arsenal. So
Similar. I think the only thing
points.
I have different is I think they're going to win Palace away. I think they're going to upset Palace. Palace is doing a little better, but I think they're going to win that one. So 7 points for them.
Could see them getting a point out of that game. I could see them
Yeah.
winning that game, by the way, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I just don't think they're strong enough to beat Palace away. Maybe I'm wrong, but I predicted 4 for that. You predicted 7. Tables would look quite different if this
Yeah.
actually comes true. And of course, in 5 games' time, guys, we're going to review this and see exactly where we landed. But that is ultimately the end of the Regista Football podcast for this episode. How are you feeling, Ben? Do you have anything else to add?
No, well, I don't have anything else to add. The one thing I do want to add is if this goes according to my predictions, where Spurs get 0 points and West Ham gets 7 points, we have Spurs in 18th and West Ham in 17th. So we'll see what this looks like in a couple weeks.
Would this also put City 3 points behind you?
This would put City 3 points behind us. Yeah.
Okay. So you're expecting that pressure.
I'm expecting that pressure all the way to
Okay.
the end. Yeah.
So for me, like given the fact that they dropped out the Champions League, I can see how that is a possibility. I just don't see them. They have quite a difficult schedule, man. I just don't see them doing what you think they're going to do in the next 5. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. We'll
That
see.
is what the predictions are for. Is they will eventually be re-looked at, and we'll see if we're wrong or not. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode today. As always, give us a kind of like a 5-star on Spotify, like us on YouTube, do all of that good stuff. Anything to add, Ben? No?
No, happy we're back at it, and we'll see you all in a couple of days.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Cheers, y'all.